You ever give your whole life to something only to be tossed out like a used paper cup? That's what happened to me. 21 years, gone in one morning. No thank you, no warning. Just a smug boss who thought he held all the power. But he forgot one thing. Have you ever worked hard for years only to have your boss treat you like you didn't matter? Maybe they ignored your efforts, denied your raise, or let you go without a second thought. If you face something like this, I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. My name's Frank Delaney. I'm 47 years old, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've worked in industrial logistics since I was 26, and for over 2 decades I helped build Lancer Freight into the machine it is today. I wasn't some suit sitting behind glass. I was the guy in the trenches, solving the impossible, winning clients we had no business landing, and putting in hours that would have broken most men. I didn't complain. I didn't make noise. I just worked. So imagine the look on my face when Carl, the man who used to praise me in every quarterly meeting, called me into his office like I was a problem he needed to get rid of. I walked in, thinking maybe we were talking expansion, maybe even finally that promotion he'd hinted at for years. Instead, he slid a folder across the desk like he couldn't be bothered to speak. "Frank," he said, barely making eye contact, "we heard you've been exploring other opportunities." I didn't lie. I just sat there, still as stone. And that's when he dropped it. Termination, effective immediately. No handshake, no explanation, no chance to speak. Security would walk me out. He thought I'd just take it, that I'd go quietly, that I had no power left. But Carl made one big mistake. He assumed I needed him more than he needed me. As I walked out of that office, the hum of the overhead lights, the soft chatter of the sales team, even the familiar rattle of the break room ice machine, it all felt distant, blurred, like the world had gone underwater. The security guy, Tim, couldn't even look me in the eye. I didn't blame him. I wasn't mad at him. He was just doing his job. Funny thing is, I trained Tim when he started, helped him fill out his first benefits form, told him where the vending machines had the fresh stuff. Now here he was, waiting to escort me out like I was some kind of thief. I didn't speak, just gathered my few things. A framed photo of my son, a travel mug from the company's 10-year anniversary picnic, a couple of notebooks filled with years of hand-scribbled notes, strategies, contacts, custom pricing solutions I built from scratch. All that knowledge, all that work, all of it staying behind. You think after 2 decades a man would get a handshake, maybe a quiet exit, a thank you lunch at least. But that's not how it works when people at the top get scared. They don't see a man anymore. They see risk, and risk needs to be controlled. But what Carl didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that for someone like me, this job wasn't just about a paycheck. It was about purpose, about pride. I was the kind of guy who woke up before the sun, packed the same lunch every day, and never, not once, called in sick unless it was something serious. I knew the names of every driver we worked with. I remembered their kids' birthdays. I stayed late without overtime just to make sure no shipment missed its window. So, yeah, when Carl dropped that hammer, he wasn't just ending a job. He was trying to erase everything I'd built, everything I'd earned, the kind of man I'd proven myself to be. And if I'm being honest, it wasn't just the money I stood to lose. Though, don't get me wrong, that stung too. My son, Ryan, just started his freshman year at Kent State. Tuition wasn't cheap. My mortgage wasn't small. And I still had 5 years left on the truck I'd finally been able to afford last winter. But deeper than the bills, deeper than the routine, was this sense that I'd given something that couldn't be replaced. Time, loyalty, respect. And now it was like they'd never seen it, like I was invisible. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a cold beer in my hand and my dog snoozing at my feet, trying to make sense of it all. Not angry, just tired, just hollow. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. I'd been let go like a man who didn't matter, and that, more than anything, was what burned. But something else was starting to stir in me, quiet and sharp. Carl thought I had nothing left, that he'd taken everything from me with one meeting and one security escort. But what he didn't realize, what he never even considered, is that sometimes when you take everything from a man, you set him free. I wasn't always the guy people came to when things hit the fan. Back when I first started at Lancer Freight, I was just another name on a clipboard. It was the spring of 2003, and I still remember the way the office smelled. Old coffee, paper dust, a faint trace of printer ink and sweat. It wasn't glamorous, not even close. The kind of place where the carpet was 2 shades darker near the door from years of dirty boots, and where the vending machine ate more dollars than it gave snacks. But I didn't care. I was 30 years old, recently divorced, and broke as hell. That place was the first steady thing I had in months. I started on the dock, loading pallets, running inventory checks, doing all the work nobody ever saw. 10-hour shifts, sometimes 12. Rain, snow, heat, it didn't matter. Freight doesn't wait, and neither did I. I kept my head down, watched the veterans, figured out what mattered and what didn't. I wasn't trying to make a name for myself. I just wanted to do right by the job. But people notice, especially when you do more than you're paid for without running your mouth about it. A few months in, the shipping manager, Dale, started giving me more responsibility. First, it was overnight schedules. Then it was truck routing. Before long, I was organizing logistics for the entire Northeast corridor. I didn't have a degree in supply chain management. I just had a system that worked and a way of thinking 10 steps ahead. By year 3, I was in the office full-time, got my own desk, phone extension, email address. That might sound like nothing now, but back then, to me, that was everything. Proof that hard work meant something, that loyalty still counted. People started coming to me with problems, missed deliveries, inventory mismatches, driver complaints. When things got messy, it was always, ask Frank. I liked that. I liked being the guy who could fix things. And I never took shortcuts. If I made a mistake, which happened sometimes, sure, I owned it. No finger pointing, no excuses. That kind of honesty, it buys you respect. And over time, I built something solid, something real. I helped win 3 major accounts that kept the company alive during the 2008 crash. Pulled strings, negotiated terms, built client trust. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was a cornerstone. Carl knew that. Everyone did. So you tell me, how does a man like that get walked out like a stranger? How does someone who gave half his life to a place end up with his box of stuff in the trunk and his name deleted from the system before he even makes it to the parking lot? The answer's simple. It's not about merit. It's about control. The moment you show them you might have options, might value yourself, they panic. You're only useful as long as you stay quiet, grateful, and tired. I gave Lancer Freight everything. They gave me a cardboard box and silence. But what they forgot, what Carl forgot, is that I didn't get where I am because I begged anyone for anything. I built my worth day by day, year by year, when no one was watching. And just because they stopped valuing it doesn't mean it disappeared. That night, I sat down at my old desktop computer, the same one I'd built with my kid when he was 12, and I opened up my resume. It hadn't been touched in over a decade. The file was dusty, full of outdated buzzwords and a photo that didn't even look like me anymore. But as I stared at the screen, a slow fire began to build in my chest. They thought I was out. But this story wasn't over, not even close. It's a strange thing, staring at your own name in a document that's supposed to sum up your entire working life. You start to wonder if it really says enough, if it tells the truth of who you were. I looked at that empty objectives section on my resume, like it was mocking me. What was my objective now? To get another job? To just start over like nothing had happened? Number, that wasn't it. I didn't want just another job. I wanted something that made sense, something that didn't insult the years I'd spent breaking my back and solving other people's messes. So I deleted the objective section altogether. I didn't need to explain myself to anyone anymore. For the first time in years, I started writing about myself. Not in a bragging way, but in plain language. Honest, clear. I listed what I did. Built logistics workflows that reduced delivery errors by 40%. Created client retention systems that kept top-tier customers loyal for over a decade. Mentored 5 junior managers who were now running departments. That last one made me pause. 2 of those guys had called me after I got walked out, not just to check on me, but to say it wasn't right. One of them, Jared, told me half the floor had gone silent after I left. Said Carl tried to spin it like I'd betrayed the company, like I was a traitor for exploring outside conversations. But people weren't buying it, because they knew me, and they knew I'd carried that place on my shoulders more than once. I spent the next few days in my garage, half of it a makeshift office, the other half still crammed with fishing gear I hadn't touched in months. My phone stayed quiet for the most part. I didn't reach out to people, didn't post a dramatic message on LinkedIn. I just worked, updating my resume, making a list of the clients I'd handled over the years, the contacts I still had. There were more than I remembered. One night, around midnight, I found myself going through an old flash drive. It had project files, notes, PDFs, from old client presentations I'd built from scratch. As I clicked through each folder, I realized something. I hadn't just worked at Lancer, I'd shaped it. Their systems, their pitch decks, their client onboarding processes. Half of it still ran on things I'd created, and now I was gone. It started as a flicker, but it grew stronger by the hour. They needed me more than they thought. And maybe, just maybe, someone else out there would see what Lancer never did. I started sending out quiet emails, not desperate, not begging, just short, polite messages to people I'd worked with on the client side over the years. Most of them remembered me. A few replied almost instantly. One of them, a guy named Dennis who ran procurement for a regional grocery chain, wrote, "You were the only reason we stuck with Lancer after that Q4 disaster 2 years ago. Let me know what you're planning." That's when it clicked. I wasn't looking for a job. I was building leverage. Meanwhile, back at Lancer, things weren't going as smoothly as Carl had probably hoped. Jared texted me later that week. "They reassigned your accounts. Both guys are overwhelmed. One client already threatened to walk." I didn't smile, but I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction, just truth finding its way to the surface. And the thing about truth is, it doesn't care how high up the ladder you sit. Carl had always played it smart, politically speaking. He knew how to talk the board's language, budgets, risk, compliance, but he didn't know how to talk to people on the ground. He didn't understand the quiet loyalty that held things together when the pressure hit. He'd never had to walk into a freezing warehouse at 2 a.m. because a shipment got rerouted to the wrong hub, and now a $200,000 client was threatening to sue. I had, and I'd handled it calmly, professionally, without asking for credit. They say no one is irreplaceable, but I was starting to think that maybe that wasn't always true. I'd planted a lot of seeds over the years, kindness, hard work, respect. I never expected anything in return, but now they were starting to bloom. Another former client, Marlon from a regional electronics distributor, messaged me. "I heard what happened. Unbelievable. If you're open to consulting, we could use someone sharp. Our current vendor is sloppy." Consulting. Now there was a word I hadn't taken seriously until now. I wasn't some green kid sending out resumes, begging for a seat at someone else's table. I was the table. I started sketching out what a solo consulting operation might look like. I didn't have a business name yet, didn't even know how the invoicing would work. But I had contacts, a reputation, and time. Most importantly, I had nothing to lose. The next few days brought more signs that Lancer was slipping. Word spread that a major client, a long-haul shipping partner out of Texas, had started shopping for other providers. Jared told me the new guy managing that account had missed 2 key deadlines. Carl tried to jump in and fix it himself. He said it didn't go well. It wasn't just one account, it was the foundation. The thing I had quietly reinforced for years: client trust, custom solutions, deep knowledge of their quirks and needs. It couldn't be replaced by a generic rep with a smile and a CRM login. But I wasn't rushing to get even. That wasn't the point. I just kept working, tightening up a pitch deck, setting up a new email domain, researching business licenses, watching tutorial videos on how to structure freelance contracts, one small step at a time. Carl had taken everything he thought made me valuable. He didn't realize the real value was never his to give or take. And soon he was about to find out. It took me 3 weeks to get everything ready. The name of my new business came to me while I was standing in line at the DMV, of all places. Iron Route Logistics. Simple, strong, something that said, "You may not see me coming, but when I'm here, you'll feel it." I liked the sound of it. By the end of the month, I had a registered LLC, a clean one-page website, and 3 clients lined up on monthly retainers. Consulting work, custom routing strategies, vendor evaluations. Stuff I used to do in my sleep at Lancer, only now I was doing it on my terms and getting paid more for it. Word got around fast, not through me. I wasn't advertising. I didn't need to. All it took was one LinkedIn update. Excited to launch Iron Route Logistics, helping companies streamline freight and find smarter supply solutions. That was it. The next morning, I had 10 messages waiting. Lancer wasn't doing well. Jared called me the following week. "It's bad, Frank," he said. No intro, no preamble. "You remember Pinnacle Electronics? They pulled their contract just like that. Carl lost it in the boardroom. He's scrambling." That account alone made up 15% of their annual revenue, but that wasn't the part that hit hardest. The client didn't say much. Jared continued, lowering his voice like someone might hear him through the phone. Just that the person they used to deal with made things feel personal, that they trusted him, and he wasn't there anymore. That was me. That account had been mine for nearly 8 years. I'd been to their offices in person. I'd sent their logistics manager a baby blanket when his daughter was born. I solved a cross-country shipping jam for them on Thanksgiving weekend once, personally called dispatch, and rerouted 3 trucks without blinking. And Carl had handed that over to someone who barely remembered the client's last name. A few days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Frank Delaney?" the voice asked. "Speaking." "This is Ellen Marsh. I'm on the board at Lancer Freight. I was given your information by one of our former clients." I said nothing, just listened. "We'd like to talk if you have time, privately, about some recent events and about Carl." I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. The pieces were falling fast. I agreed to meet her at a diner, not an office. I wore jeans and a clean polo, no suit, no tie. I didn't need armor. I was already standing. Ellen was polite, director. She didn't waste time trying to flatter me. "We believe Carl may have acted rashly, without board approval. His handling of your termination has had cascading effects." "That's one way to put it," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. She folded her hands, looked me square in the eye. "We'd like to offer you a return. Senior leadership. Executive title. Oversight of all operations. A chance to rebuild what's been lost." I looked out the window for a moment, thought about the garage, my dog at my feet, my name on the door of a company that I owned, my son's text from last week. "Proud of you, Dad. You inspire me." I turned back to her. "No, thank you," I said, calm, firm, kind. "That chapter's done." She nodded slowly, like she expected it. "Well, if you change your mind—" "I won't," I said with a small smile. There was no bitterness in my voice, no smugness, just peace. Because in the end, I didn't need to tear anyone down to rise. Carl had dug his own hole. I just stepped aside and let the dirt fall where it belonged. A few weeks later, Lancer announced a major restructuring. Carl's name wasn't on the new org chart. I didn't even read the press release. Someone texted it to me. I let it sit unopened. That morning, I had more important things to do. One of my new clients was launching a nationwide expansion, and they'd asked me to lead the logistics rollout. I grabbed my coffee, slid into the driver's seat of my pickup, and looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Same face, same eyes. But something had changed. I wasn't powerless. I never was.